Tyson Foods is the latest large business to flee Chicago. What sparked the exodus? I know you know the answer. Let's talk about it. Let's get into it. Tyson joined large companies such as Caterpillar, Boeing, Citadel, a big hedge fund company. They're all moving out of Chicago. You got McDonald's saying, hey, we're having a hard time recruiting to our downtown corporate headquarters because nobody wants to relocate to Chicago. Then you've got the mayor, Mayor Lori Lightfoot. Some of you refer to her as Beetlejuice. I'm not really sure why, but you do. And so you've got a situation where the mayor is saying, hey, everything's great. I don't know what she literally came out and told the media that the CEO of McDonald's needs to educate himself on what's going on in Chicago. Well, I'd say that if Tyson Foods is taking a whole bunch of corporate jobs also out of Chicago, seems to be a trend there, right? Seems to be a trend there. Did you see what Chicago's crime statistics, 39 people shot last weekend? Who can keep track? It's so crazy. They're just shooting each other left and right. And that spills over into the downtown. A lot of that's on the south side, spills over into downtown. Just watching a Phil Cavuto interview, and he was interviewing a small business owner in Chicago, and she's saying, yeah, you know what? My friends are getting carjacked when they're making deliveries. She owns a small food company. My friends are getting carjacked. We all got to look over our shoulders whenever we go somewhere. Yeah, it's just not safe. Chicago isn't safe anymore, and everybody realizes it, and the mayor recognizes it, but the mayor's got to do a spin because a lot of this falls on her. These are her policies. These are her decisions. This is what you get when you pay for a defund the police and all that other craziness that was so summer of 2020, and now it's not. Tyson Foods Incorporated. Tyson Foods, massive, massive food company. And granted, we are talking about their corporate headquarters. Okay, that's what we're talking about. We're going to move like 500 jobs out of Chicago. Not a huge number, but it's a significant event, right? Tyson Foods Incorporated became the latest large company to announce its departure from Chicago, continuing a trend in the city that many have argued is the result of the city's skyrocketing rates of crime and threatens to do harm to its most vulnerable populations. Something I talked about pretty extensively yesterday is when you take out companies, when you take out like a supermarket, like a Kroger, you take out a CVS, you take out a McDonald's actual store, like McDonald's has said they're doing in high crime areas. When you take out a Starbucks store because, of high crime, because the CEO is concerned about the employees, those are economic opportunities that folks on the lower socioeconomic, end of things, that's where they can get jobs oftentimes. Those are the jobs available. And when you take those businesses out of an area, you're shrinking that economic opportunity even further, and you're making that area even worse. So you've got all these double whammies going on. Granted, this one we're talking about here, these are more, leadership positions that are moving out, management positions that are moving out because, they don't want those people to get maimed, hurt, carjacked, whatever it is either. You're talking about a situation where you have a hollowed out economy, talking about Chicago, where you have businesses leaving there. There are no jobs. Heritage Foundation Senior Research Fellow in the Center for Health and Welfare Policy, Robert Moffit, told Fox News Digital last month. And the people who are desperately hurt by this are mostly low income and Black and minority residents who suffer the most from this high crime. And yet the mayor of Chicago is still in a position where it's like, nothing to see here. You guys don't know what you're talking about. You need to educate yourself. We got a lot of good things going on in Chicago. And the rest of us are like, are you talking about the down under here? What reality, what version of reality are you talking about? Because the rest of us aren't seeing it. But current administration always has to put that positive spin on things. Everything's fine. It's all good. You got carjacked? Sorry to hear that. Hopefully things will turn around and we'll be on the up and up, right? Moffit's comments came after McDonald's CEO Chris Kaczynski took aim at Chicago in a mid-September speech, arguing that the city's rising crime rates have made it increasingly difficult for companies to operate or find employees. And he was specifically talking about leadership positions. We have violent crime that's happening in our restaurants. We're seeing homelessness issues in our restaurants. We're having drug overdoses that are happening in our restaurants, Kabensky said at the time. So we see in our restaurants every single day what's happening in society at large. That was a big thing with Starbucks. They used to have an open restroom policy, even if you weren't paying for anything in their store. Yeah, come on in, use our restroom. We love you. Until they realized, okay, prostitution, so sex is going on in their restrooms. People are shooting up in their restrooms. People are going in there for long periods of time and doing God knows what. And then you've got all these people, these drug addicts and the homeless folks coming into these stores and creating a situation where patrons don't want to go in there and get coffee because they fear for their lives, which is a fair assessment. That's not really where I want to get my coffee. It's not happening. Tiffany Smiley running against Patty Murray here in the state of Washington. One of her, Tiffany Smiley's ad campaigns is, hey, you can't even get a coffee at the hometown Starbucks because it's too dangerous. And they had to shut that store down. And they did. They literally did. Yeah, our employees are talking about their safety and they're not feeling very safe. Therefore, going to have to close a few stores down. And Starbucks announced a while ago they're cutting 16 stores. That's not uncommon. Shut some down, open some up. You know what? Are they opening any new stores up in downtown Chicago right now? Hard to say. My guess would be, yeah, probably not. All right. Crime in Chicago has spiked during Black Lives Matter riots and defund the police movement in the aftermath of the 2020 George Floyd, with the city recording its deadliest year in a quarter century in last year with 797 homicides. Let that sink in for a second. Chicago's a big city, big population, right? A few million people. 797 homicides. That is a crap ton, even for Chicago. That is, you've just, every single weekend, you've got multiple people being taken out. Because that's just what happens, right? Chicago Police Department Chief of Detectives Eugene Roy told Fox News Digital over the summer that the city is engaged in a stealth defunding of the police department by failing to provide adequate resources and staffing to the department as officers leave or retire. This has happened all across the United States, right? In these cities that lean a little further left. Seattle's done it. Portland's done it. So it's not like when the summer of 2020 came around, these police, staffs were fully staffed. They weren't. They were already shy. In the case of Portland, Seattle, hundreds of police officers. And then when you have hundreds of police officers quit, retire, make lateral moves elsewhere where they are wanted, where their public safety is wanted, then you've got a situation where you got a double whammy. You came into these events short-staffed, and now you're really short-staffed because nobody wants to be a cop in these areas where you've defunded the police and you've just basically crapped on the police department as a whole. The reality has seen crime rise across nearly every category, something businesses are taking note of as they look towards the future. Yeah, and yet you've got these leaders that are like, it's all good here. It's all fine. Don't worry about it. It's all good. We're doing good. Billionaire Ken Griffin announced earlier this year that he was moving his hedge firm Citadel out of Chicago because of the rising crime, a move that was also made by mining equipment giant Caterpillar, big yellow cats, yep, and Boeing, the world's largest aerospace company. Nothing to see here. Yeah, we lost Boeing, but, we'll get them back. Caterpillar, well, yeah, McDonald's, having a tough time. And now Tyson Foods. Interesting. Seems to be a pattern here, doesn't there? Seems to be a pattern. Can't quite put my finger on it, but what do we got going? If people aren't safe here, they're not going to live here, Griffin told the Wall Street Journal in April. I've had multiple colleagues mugged at gunpoint. That's not good. I've had a colleague stabbed on the way to work. Again, not good. These are people who know people that are living in Chicago. This is going on. carjackings going on. Countless issues of burglary. I mean, that's a really difficult backdrop with which to draw talent to your city from. Hey, don't worry. I mean, odds are you're most likely not going to have your life ended. I mean, you might get stabbed. You might get shot. You might have your car jacked. If you open up a business here, it's going to be robbed. But, beyond that, I'd say come on into Chicago. Let's party. We would do thousands of jobs a year in the city, but as we got robbed more, my people operating rollers and pavers, we got robbed, our equipment would get stolen in broad daylight, and there would usually be a gun involved. And if it got expensive, it got dangerous. Rabin also pointed out that the rising crime leads to increased costs in other areas, pointing to increased expenses in both security for his businesses and insurance rates. So you got to provide security, and maybe you've made a couple of claims on your insurance. There's a limit at which insurance companies will say, yeah, no. You make one claim on a commercial insurance policy, it's not good. You may see those premiums double, triple, quadruple. And that's if you can get a renewal, because that's how this works, right? What happened eventually is we said enough is enough for being said. We stopped doing work down there. We stopped doing work for the gas company, the electric company, the South Side, the West Side, and eventually all over Chicago. Those companies now work in other places. They work over the border in Wisconsin, the other suburbs of Chicago, where they feel safer. Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot has defended the city in the wake of the exodus, arguing business leaders such as Kavinsky don't have a firm understanding of the situation. Let's see, 797 murders. I'm gonna have to get back to you on that then, because if I'm seeing that and I'm reading this other stuff and you got businesses leaving, my understanding is those are not positive aspects from which to encourage businesses to come to Chicago. I'm not seeing the correlation. Now, I'm a small business owner and I don't run a multi-billion-dollar corporations like the corporations leaving Chicago here. But, the gist of what they're saying is, hey, Chicago's not where you want to be doing business for a variety of reasons. I think what would have been helpful is for the McDonald's CEO to educate himself before he spoke. That's literally what Lori Lightfoot said. That's literally what she said. Like, what? And what she was talking about, she was pointing to a letter from World Business Chicago president, this guy, World Business Chicago president, Michael Fassnacht, that she argued, now he wrote a letter and he lays out in exact detail all the good news, the economic news, and about what's happening in our city. I mean, he needs to educate himself. He needs to read the newsletter from World Business Chicago president. Yeah. Well, or do you listen to the businesses leaving and do you look at the crime stats and go, yeah, maybe the Windy City, maybe it's a little too windy right there. Yeah, if you know what I mean. The fact is there are fewer large companies headquartered in Chicago this year than last year, period. That's what the CEO of McDonald's says, right? Like, yeah, this is the direction we're going. There's no matter of political spin that you can put on this stuff to kind of convince us that things are otherwise. Tyson becomes the latest company to contribute to the trend, though its leaders stayed away from publicly pointing to rising crime as a driver of the decision. Maybe they want to come back someday. Well, when it gets better, really like Chicago. It's got those cool waterways and got cool buildings and it's so centrally located. We love it there, except for that carjacking, murder, stabbing, break-ins, whatnot, general crime. Except for that part. We love it. Bringing our talented corporate team members and businesses together under one roof unlocks great. Okay, this is the corporate spin and why they're doing what they're doing. They're taking about 500 jobs out of Chicago. They're moving them to Arkansas, and they're also taking another 500 jobs from where else was it? Wherever they are now. So you're moving about 1,000 jobs down to their Arkansas headquarters out of Chicago because it's not safe. That's wild, right? I mean, but this is an ongoing trend. And yet you've literally got the mayor saying, nothing to see here. He needs to read this newsletter that our chief promote Chicago all over the world dude is saying. I mean, he's got some stats there. There's good stuff going on. Don't worry about the 797 murders. Yeah. Is your glass half full? Is your glass half empty? Which way do you go? Now, the businesses are basically saying, as much as Chicago has had to offer in the past, not so much today. And I think you'll continue to see big businesses moving out of Chicago, because unless they get some different political leadership, much of the same is going to happen. And I will cover much of the same here on News for Reasonable People. Thanks for joining. We'll catch up on the next one. Bye for now.